back to the channel and welcome to the 5th in my 5-part series where I look at all the detail about the system of car control and the 5 phases. So it seemed to make sense to break those 5 phases of the system into 5 separate videos. So by way of a very quick reminder, there are 5 phases to the system of car control, and they are an information phase and then 4 action phases, which are position, speed, gear and acceleration. In the last video we looked at gear, how to choose a gear, how to change gear smoothly, what gear means in automatic cars, CVT cars and electric cars. And in this video we're going to look at the part of the system, the 5th action phase, the one that finishes everything off and moves you on to the next hazard. So if you remember, we apply the system of car control on approach to a hazard, which is anything that you might need to deal with on the road. And actually the acceleration phase is the phase which we are setting ourselves up for with all the other phases. Acceleration is the phase that takes us into the hazard, takes us through the hazard and then leaves the hazard behind. Now, to be clear, we're not always talking about a great big stamp on the accelerator pedal. But if we're driving along and we have to deal with a hazard, a parked car or a mini roundabout, whatever it is, we're going to have to get our position right, slow down, take a lower gear to negotiate the hazard. But then once we've negotiated it, we want to get back up to the speed that we were driving at. And in order to do that, we need a bit of acceleration. Now sometimes that might only be 5 miles an hour. Sometimes it might be a really good squeeze on the accelerator, for example, to get you up to motorway speeds, because we want to be up to a decent speed before we join lane 1 of the motorway, amongst all that other fast moving traffic. But everything we do sets us up for that. We get our position right, we reduce our speed for the hazard, we get a nice flexible gear, and flexibility in our choice of gear will then dictate how much acceleration we've got. Now this will sound a bit obvious, but you know, there's lots of different cars on the road and they all accelerate in different ways. Some cars have plenty of power. This is a Mini JCW, it's got 230 brake horsepower. It accelerates really nicely. Other cars, my daughter's got a little 1 litre Volkswagen Up, well, that accelerates a little bit more, shall we say, in a pedestrian manner. It's nice and steady. Doesn't try and break your neck every time you press the accelerator. Sometimes on a road like this, a national speed limit road, when we're setting ourselves up for an overtake on a slow moving vehicle like this truck, and I am expecting the pickup to move out and overtake it when we get to the overtaking lane, sometimes we're going to give a really nice good firm squeeze on the accelerator to get up to speed. We'll let him finish his overtake. There's a car in the distance. This overtake isn't on for us because of that white car in the distance, so we're going to wait. But when it is on, I'm going to give it a really good squeeze, because I can do. Gets us back up to speed nicely. National speed limit road, 60 miles an hour. It was entirely appropriate to use a good squeeze of accelerator. At other times, if we're in a 20 limit and our speed has dropped down to 15, we're going to just very gradually put that speed on. The more hazards there are around us, the more careful we're going to be with our use of acceleration. So it's important to know the performance of our vehicle. It's important to know what the appropriate gears are for different speeds. Going back to the gear phase, we talked about knowing the approximate maximum road speed for every gear in the car, and about always having the car in the right gear for the speed that you're travelling at. And the right gear will always give us a decent amount of acceleration away from a hazard. So how does it fit in? If you notice, there is a little overlap between position and speed, and a little overlap between speed and gear. So those phases, those action phases, position, speed and gear, can be slightly blended together. Definitely position and speed. Speed and gear only really as part of a planned approach to certain hazards, downhill, hairpins, things like that. Most of the time we try and separate those out. But there is a definite a definite separation between gear and acceleration. We don't accelerate while we're still changing gear. Now that might sound really obvious, some people might try it, but it'll go badly wrong. So don't accelerate while you're still changing gear. Make sure if you're in a manual car, you've fully changed gear and you've fully re-engaged the clutch before you start to accelerate. Otherwise you'll just get a big rev and then a bit of a jerk because the clutch comes up. So we want the clutch fully engaged before we start the acceleration phase. Now acceleration to me isn't really something that you need to teach very much as part of the system of car control. The difficult thing with system is doing all the other things in the right order, getting your position right, then getting your speed right, then finishing your braking, then getting your gear right. Once all that's done, acceleration to me, and it certainly feels like this with a lot of other people that I teach, acceleration feels like just a natural outcome of everything else that you've done. We've done everything else now, we're set up. I mentioned in the last video, or one of the previous videos, about reducing our workload. Everything below the top of the dashboard should be nice and controlled, one thing at a time. And all you've got left to do, if you've done all those other things, all you've got left to do is press the accelerator. You might need to turn the wheel, you know, and steer us in the direction we want to go, but all you've got left to do is accelerate. So if we think about this right hand corner that's coming up, I'm going to get my position right. I'm going to consider my speed, but actually my speed's okay. I'm at 57, 58. The gear's okay, and then as I go around the corner, all I'm going to do is just squeeze the accelerator very gently just to maintain speed. Not even to put speed on, I'm just maintaining my speed through the corner through use of the accelerator. Remember what happens to the car's weight when you press the accelerator. Got brake lights coming on, somebody turning off. So it would be very easy to set yourself up for an overtake here, wouldn't it? But look at this van turning right. Now we'll have the overtake. Yeah, sometimes through corners like this we are just using enough acceleration to keep the car settled. Keep it settled through the corner. The weight transfer that you get from acceleration transfers weight to the rear axle. And I've said this in other cornering videos before. I'll put a link in the description below to some of the other cornering videos that I've done. It's really important on the road that we maintain a positive throttle and positive acceleration through corners, because what happens is it transfers some weight to the rear axle, which essentially pushes the rear wheels down into the road. You've got to remember when you're turning through a corner that you're not just steering with the front wheels, you're steering all four wheels around the corner. You turn the car with the front wheels and that points the car in the direction you want to go, but you definitely want the rear wheels to follow accurately, to follow the front wheels, and you do that by pressing the accelerator. So I turn the front wheels there, keep a bit of positive acceleration on, just increasing speed very slightly through the corner, transferring some weight rearwards, and that keeps the car nice and balanced and true and accurate through the corner. It means you're not sawing at the wheel and doing 50-pen steering and all that kind of stuff. So for cornering, good use of acceleration is really important. But for any other hazard, it's important as well. You've got to remember, it's what people expect from us. If we're applying system to turn left at a junction, we're going to get our position right, we're going to get our speed correct, we're going to get a gear. What we're not going to do is then trickle around into that junction at the speed we've dropped down to. What we're going to do is gradually build our speed up again. We come to a roundabout. We're going to approach the roundabout, get our position right, get our speed right. We're planning to stop, looking to go. We'll get an appropriate gear, drive onto the roundabout, but we're not going to stay at that lowest speed. We might have slowed down to 5 miles an hour on approach to the roundabout, but we're not going to stay at 5 miles an hour all the way around it. We're going to gradually accelerate and build our speed up. That's where nice, accurate acceleration comes in. Now, I have talked a bit before about acceleration sense. I'll put a link in the description below to my video about that. Acceleration sense is accurately controlling the speed of the car with the accelerator, but that's one for the speed phase rather than this one at the acceleration phase. The acceleration phase of system is to drive you away from the hazard. In an automatic car, it's essentially the same. We talked in previous videos about getting your speed right, giving the car time to get the gear, letting the car settle ready for the acceleration phase. Then when the acceleration phase comes, the only thing you've got to be careful with in automatic cars is pressing it too hard and getting an unnecessary kick down. I lost a mark on my advanced car course in the police in 1995. I've still got the marking sheet somewhere at home. And I lost a mark because I was driving a 3-litre Senator, and I was pretty unfamiliar with automatic cars at the time. And we're on the motorway section. Remember, we're exempt from speed limits. And in the notes it says, kick down at 120 miles an hour, question mark. Basically, I was trying to get this car, I was trying to whip this car up to as fast as I could possibly get it, because it was my advanced car test, or one of my advanced car tests. And I just squeezed it a bit hard and the car kicked down. I think they were a 5-speed automatic then, and it kicked down to 4th at 120, only momentarily. But I can just imagine my examiner, the sergeant at the time, raising an eyebrow at that, marking me down. I got marked down from an 87 to an 86 on that one. But at low speed, that kick down can catch you out as well, especially if you left the car in sport. So sometimes there is a benefit in these built-up urban areas. All right, it's only sharp, but you know what I mean. These built-up urban areas, click it back into normal or comfort mode. The car is less likely to kick down as you accelerate into junctions and around roundabouts and things like that. When you get back on the open road again, click it back into sport, and it'll be more eager to kick down when you want it to, when you're in control of it. When we're approaching speed limits like this, always good to keep an eye on what's happening behind, mainly because we don't want to accelerate if we're being overtaken. But get a flexible gear on approach. In this car, 4th gear at 40 miles an hour is good on approach to national speed limits. Then a nice squeeze. One of the mistakes people make when they're accelerating into an overtake is they put too much speed on, because they think too much about the overtake, they don't think about what's next. So if you're at the acceleration phase of an overtake, remember, you don't need all the car's performance, you don't need everything, you just need to get back up to the speed that you're at before you did the overtake. And once you're out on the overtake and you're alongside the car, the vehicle that you're overtaking, think about what's next, because you don't end up arriving at the next corner 20-30 miles an hour too fast. Just use the right amount of acceleration. I think the terminology it used to have in roadcraft is the correct amount of safe and smooth acceleration to leave the hazard behind. Now, at the acceleration phase, you've got to think about road surface as well. You've got to think about, is it a nice dry, good condition road surface, or is it wet and slippery, possibly icy? Is there mud on the road? Is there something that's going to affect the car's traction? Because the tyre grip element that we're relying on for acceleration is traction. That's when the tyre's rotating and it's gripping on the road surface and pulling or pushing the car forward. So if it's potentially a slippery road surface, we're going to be a lot more careful in how we apply that accelerator pedal. If it's a nice dry road surface, well, we can press it a bit harder, we can get a bit more acceleration. There are laws in this country about how fast you can go, but there are no laws about how quickly you can accelerate, remember that. But at the same time, we don't want to accelerate in a way that we're spinning the car's tyres up, that we're getting into the realms of careless driving or aggressive driving, or we're drawing attention to ourselves in any way like that. The correct amount of safe, smooth acceleration. If it is a slippery road surface and you're accelerating too hard, you might start to get a flash from your dashboard. That'll be the traction control or the stability control kicking in. And that system will either be cutting the throttle, it'll recognise that the wheels are starting to spin, it'll cut the throttle, it may even apply brakes to stop the wheels from spinning. If you notice that light flashing, go a bit easier. Take your lead diving boots off, be more gentle on that accelerator. Like any other element of driving, smoothness is key. When we apply the accelerator, we do it in a smooth way. We don't want to suddenly throw the weight rearwards. If you're getting suddenly thrown back in your seat with acceleration, remember, that's what's happening to the tyres. It's what's happening to the rear tyres, the front tyres. You know, if you're in a front wheel drive car, you accelerate really hard like that, you're removing weight from the front axle, which is the one that's doing the driving. So do it smoothly, build it up. If you're in a rear wheel drive car, you're adding weight to the driven axle, but you're doing it in a sudden way. So be more smooth and controlled in the way that you apply the accelerator. In an electric car, we talked in the video about the speed phase, 2 videos back, about there being a tipping point, a bit that people struggle with. in between decelerating and accelerating. Electric cars accelerate really vigorously. Some of them are incredible. There are performance levels in electric cars that, you know, even the highest performance internal combustion engine cars can't reach. And that's because there's no delay in the transmission. We're not waiting for the sweet spot in the motor. It's always at its sweet spot. But you've got to bear that in mind. And you go and drive a high performance Tesla or something like that, if you put your foot right down in what you don't need to do anything with the gearbox, the engine revs are irrelevant. If you put your foot down like I've done there, bang, your head will go back into the seat. And it's all very, you know, it's all very good for a couple of minutes. But in something like that, you can go from, you know, 30 to 130 in just a matter of seconds. And it's your license on that. You've got to be careful with that. Be really careful where you use that level of performance. And the other thing to bear in mind is it's how we apply the acceleration in conjunction with the other controls. And the other control mainly being the steering. So I've said before in cornering videos, I'll go back to earlier on in this video, I was talking about accompanying the steering, accompanying the corner with a bit of a press on the accelerator. It's almost like the two are mechanically linked. So as I turn the wheel, I would gently press the accelerator just to maintain speed. The brake lights have just gone off on this van here. I thought the door was about to open there. So especially when the speeds are picking up, it's almost like the steering wheel and the accelerator pedal are mechanically linked together. Set yourself up on approach to the corner, position speed and gear, and then all you've got left to do is turn the wheel and press the gas. Now, here's the thing about the acceleration phase. If you drive an SUV, something with a higher centre of gravity, maybe on softer suspension, there is a benefit of getting the accelerator in just a little bit before the steering, because there's a delay in the car's reactions. In something like this, the Mini, or in something more sporty, there's an immediate reaction from the steering. If I give the steering a move there, it immediately reacts. There's no slack around the dead ahead. But in an SUV, for example, if I was approaching this corner, I would press the gas now, so the weight transfers rearwards, and then I would gradually bring the steering in. So something lower and tighter, you're going to turn the steering wheel, press the accelerator at the centre. Something higher and a bit softer, you're going to press the gas and then turn the steering wheel. What that does is that settles the car's weight rearwards before you ask it to steer. So you're only moving the weight in one direction at a time. And if you drive an SUV and you find them a little bit ungainly, modern SUVs aren't really like this, but if you do drive an SUV like a Range Rover or something a little bit softer with a bit of off-road capability, with a bit of that, that big axle movement, try this. Try just applying the gas just before you turn the wheel, and on the road you'll find that the car becomes much more sharp and accurate. I mean, to a degree that an SUV can do. So that's it for this video. That's acceleration. That's the last in this series of 5 videos about all the detail about the system of car control. I hope you found it useful. If you have any questions, stick them in the comments below. Try and watch this series in order. I'll put a link below to the other videos, and I'll put a link below to all the other videos about acceleration and acceleration in corners and things like that. And don't forget to go and have a look at the website, ragelocal.com. Loads more information there about advanced and performance driving and riding, information about the books I've written, how you can get a copy of them, and how you can get a day's driver or rider coaching with me. I've got quite a lot booked in this year. But if you fancy a ride out or a drive out on some of these roads, drop me a line. I'll give you all the information. Maybe we'll get something in the diary. But for now, thanks a lot for watching. Hope you enjoyed it, got something out of it, and we'll see you in the next one.